Want to expand the reach of your content? Start a podcast. Feature industry experts on your show and leverage the influence and reach of your guests to grow your brand. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm your host for today's episode, Travis King at Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Justin Neece, who's the President and Chief Executive Officer at Eye2Eye Population Health. Justin, welcome to the show, my friend. What's going on?
How you doing? Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. Super excited to chat with you today. And today, you're going to be sharing what it means to find the voice of the market and voice of the client in today's, very complex marketing world, and a few simple ways that other B2B marketers can use this in their business. But before we get into that, I'd love for you to share with listeners a little bit about yourself and what you and the team at Eye2Eye Population Health are up to these days.
Thank you. Sounds great. So it's great to be on the show. My name's Justin Neece. I have been at Eye2Eye for almost 5 years. We're approaching our 20th anniversary right after the first year in 2020. And just for the listeners, Eye2Eye Population Health is a technology solutions and services company that's focused on complex populations such as Medicaid, Medicare, and the uninsured primarily. And our goal is really to provide a complete population health management ecosystem that allows our users to visualize key clinical and administrative data at a network or at a patient level to improve quality outcomes. I know that's a lot, but specifically, said even simply, Eye2Eye works with its clients to improve the health of their communities. So we're very focused on driving healthier populations across the country. Our focus right now is really specific to understanding where the market is going, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit, and how to do that. But healthcare is very complex, both at a government level and at a local level. And so we're really very focused in working with our clients to get the voice of our client and also understanding the market dynamics, which you alluded to earlier. So voice of market as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that background and giving listeners some context. So to jump right in, could you share with us a little bit about what it means to your business at Eye2Eye Health to find the voice of market and the voice of client today?
Absolutely. Voice of market for me is really trying to understand where the puck is going for the future. In healthcare, you have a lot of environmental factors. And the way I would describe environmental factors are legislative, government regulations that can come out, all the way to consumerism, which can play a different role as those two forces come together. Some things that we are very focused on at Eye2Eye is really trying to get as much information and feedback from the market and different stakeholders and constituents that are out there so that we can build a platform, a technology platform that can serve not only the now, but the future as well.
Got it. And when you say get as much feedback as you possibly can from the market and different stakeholders and constituents that are out there, what way, like, how do you get this feedback? Like, what sort of methods or tools do you use to get this feedback?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think if you were to sort of draw two different circles on a piece of paper, you'd have your first circle would be all about the different types of activities and events, right, that you can attend. So obviously, conferences, we have a wealth of different conferences that provide lots of content to reading very specific case studies and articles that are published. But on the other circle that's over on the right side, one insight I would give is that with that circle, it's really about the who. And for me, I would advise these types of stakeholders when you look at market. So, first off, we know that money drives certain specific actions in the market. So, private equity investors to venture capitalists who are out there are looking at a lot of different varieties of companies throughout the market. Get to know some of those people. You can learn a lot from those folks because they're investing for a lot of different, investors and strategic companies, large companies. Think about the Amazons of the world, or even just health plans in general who are investing dollars in the market. They're relying on these type of specialists to point them in the right direction so they know a lot about what's going on in the market. The second group I would highly emphasize are folks who are actually delivering, in our case, healthcare. Get to know folks who are executives or doctors or physicians. And you don't have to, get a large group, but in your local area, who is someone that could be a mentor, as an example, that you could lean on to help understand what are your challenges, what keeps you up at night. These are folks that are actually doing the practical work and building strategy for the future. And then the third group I would say is folks who you may not think about in time, but are bankers. So bankers across the industry are typically representing, they're almost like real estate brokers. They are representing either buyers or they're representing sellers. And therefore, guess who they talk to? They talk to the first two stakeholders I talked about a lot. So they're talking to private equity folks and they're talking to the folks who are doing the work. So like physicians, CEOs, COOs, et cetera. That group, investment bankers, is a very interesting group. And they typically have a lot of knowledge about the market and where things are also looking to head. So those are three sort of stakeholders I would focus on, other than the first circle, which is obviously, getting as much information, going to conferences, signing up for webinars, et cetera. And guys, a lot of this is free. You're not having to spend money to go and do this.
Love that. Love the visualization there too, because I'm a very visual learner. So I actually drew out the different types of activities and the who on a piece of paper as you told me to do it. And
Me
as I
as
looked at it,
well.
I'm like,
Very visual that way too.
it makes so much sense because, yeah, it 100% makes sense because if you break down the very two simple circles, like you mentioned, the different types of activities, everyone can envision the activities of conferences, reading case studies, listening to webinars, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, whatever, method that they use to learn. And then on the flip side, on the other side, where you talk about the who, and really, dropped a really valuable piece of information there, Justin. And, realizing that private equity and investors, along with executives and bankers, are the people that are leading a lot of the industries that most of the people listening are working in and doing their marketing work in. So I think that's such a valuable piece of information that I didn't even think about being a resource to learn and figure out, what's happening next per se. and realizing that this is somewhere that you can really get a lot of value from just by having, lunch or dinner or just getting a mentor in that space. So thanks so much for dropping that knowledge on us, Justin.
Absolutely. I think the activity side really helps you build key questions. Again, you don't want to abuse your time with these folks on the right circle or the second circle we talked about, the three stakeholders. So, because some people, may only have 15 minutes, but if you understand through the content of the activities, and it may be a hot webinar you signed up for, and you notice, wow, 1,000 people are on this webinar. This must be a hot topic. Well, what's one question that I could ask out of that to, my stakeholders? You're not trying to write a novel. You're just trying, right, to get very specific information that can help you begin to think about your future strategy for your company.
I love that. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but would you mind sharing some questions that, you've either asked in the past that were very specific and to the point when it comes to, interacting and discussing different things with private equity executives or bankers?
Absolutely. Here's a great question. One that typically hits home, with a lot of different folks. In healthcare right now, it's easy to say one of the largest topics is around the industry moving from a fee-for-service model to a pay-for-performance model. It's one of the few industries, right, that's out there where it was built on volume and now is trying to move towards how well you move your population to a better result in outcomes, quality clinical outcomes, is how you're going to get paid. So a very quick question around that is to any of those constituents that you can ask is, hey, where do you see this going right now in healthcare? And how fast do you think it's going to move? Because I think everybody genuinely agrees that we have to change healthcare because it is, costing almost 18% of our gross domestic product, our GDP. But what are the steps to do that, and how quickly do you think this is going to change? I know that was very specific to healthcare, but that's just one, quick question and topic that's very hot on everybody's list.
No, I love that. I mean, and even for the people that are not in healthcare, I think the framework is genius. Where do you see this going in insert industry, and how fast do you think it's going to move there?
Yes,
I think
that's right. Yes.
Because I think that's something that a lot of people can apply when, talking to people that are building the strategies and the plans and the frameworks for the future of whatever industry they're in. So I think that's a super valuable question, even though it's specific to you, but it can still be adapted to, any marketer in any field, whether you're in finance, whether you're in tech sales, whether you're in industries are blank in my mind, hospitality, banking, et cetera, all the
Yes,
out there.
absolutely.
That framework can be definitely used and applied. And Justin, as I'm thinking about this, do you have any, I guess, tips or strategies outside of your first year that you mentioned, the different activities and identifying the who? Do you have any other, I guess, tips about how people can find the voice of client?
For voice of client or voice of market? For voice of
Well, I guess
client?
either or.
Yeah, I mean, for voice of really both of those, I read a lot. But when I say I read a lot, I don't read a lot. And what I mean, I know that's a little confusing, but what I mean by that is that I read a lot of industry news. And so what I would advise folks to do is sign up for different types of blogs and different types of professional content. And that could be just daily or weekly emails. It could be different types of short publication magazines, but all around the industry that you're focused in. And so, we all take in what's on our mobile device right now. And the cool thing now is I think marketers have gotten very smart about publishing to your iPhone, whatever that is, the daily blast. And you can quickly scroll through the subject headlines, right? And what you begin to see, if you catalog this, you go back and you think about, wow, over the last 2 weeks, social determinants of health or opioid addiction was listed on 5 out of the last 10 days. And what that tells you, right, as a viewer is, hey, these are hot topics. There are things that are going on with these programs that I need to be aware of. So that's how I imbibe sort of information very quickly. It doesn't mean you read every article. You just see what is very hot and what is a topic, and then you can drill into it to learn more.
I love that. I'm gonna nerdily call myself out because I do that same thing, and I use Google for that. And so, like, based off of my interests and articles that I've actually searched for, when I log into my phone, it's not like news. It's a lot of podcast news. It's a lot of business development and marketing stuff, and there's sports and music in there. And it's so accustomed to what I'm searching, and it's actually just giving me the stuff that I would look for in those sorts of newsletters anyway. So I definitely love that. And I'm also a huge proponent of using something like an Evernote to where, when you come across this stuff, make sure if it's really important, you either, send it to yourself, Slack it to yourself, share it with someone, just to make sure that if for any reason that it's something that's valuable or valuable to someone that you potentially, would want to do business with, think about where you can go retrieve that and kind of have a little catalog that you can refer back to. That's all third party resources that, isn't pushing your business mission forward, isn't trying to sell them on anything, but more of a value add to whoever you're dealing with in the context of the relationship.
I'm a huge Evernote user. Been a user since 2012, and I would 100% agree. You should download the Clipper, which will sit right on your header bar within Chrome or Internet Explorer or whatever you use. And it's so simple to clip an article. You get the summary and create your folders. It can be whatever subject, and you just push them over there. You can even go back and read them. My team gets a lot of Evernote pushes from me because the other thing about what we're talking about is if you don't share it, you're not going to grow. You have to share your knowledge across your company. So I also try to up the knowledge of everyone in the company, because if I'm reading something that's happening in the market, I always think, well, wow, my product team might need to know about this, or my engineering team may need to know this, or my client services team. So yeah, Evernote is just one example. It's so easy to clip it and then push it, right?
100%. I have it up in my tab bar right now.
Yes.
Awesome. So as we wrap up, we're coming to the latter part of the show, and B2B growth has always been about highlighting tactics and strategies B2B leaders can apply to their own teams in order to achieve explosive growth. So Justin, we'd love to hear from you. What's a new sales or marketing strategy that your team is currently trying to take a crack at or thinking about in the near future?
Oh, great question. I would say that something that we just started with, we're a Salesforce user at our company. We have followed more of a traditional sales model of sales reps in the market, those that have relationships, which are all very, very important. One of the things that we have been trying, I'm not sure that this is much of a novel idea, but maybe one for sure in the healthcare segment. We have business development associates who essentially create campaigns in Salesforce. I think the tweak that we've made, which goes back to voice of market, instead of creating sort of lead generation lists, we have now added content with that around a very specific voice of market subject. So if I take another example of, let's say, opioid addiction and how the fight against OUD and the types of things that are going on with that, we'll attach a very small paragraph to sort of a campaign that we would push out. And then in addition to that, we would clip a very brief video of our software. Maybe it's only 2 screenshots that show the user how we are working with our, healthcare clients to fight opioid abuse. So something new that we're trying, but what I can tell you is typically we would average about 3 or 4 product demos, per individual on a monthly basis. In 2 months, we're now over 10 product demos per person per month. So a significant increase just in reshaping, how we're trying to generate attention to what we're doing.
I love that, Justin. Congrats, by the way. That's exciting. You go from 3 to 4 and then you triple it essentially and get to 10 plus.
It's
That's
big.
awesome.
It's big. Yeah. We're having a party in the back for the guys because, it was their idea to come up with this. And, just little tweaks like that can really drive results.
I love that. And this has been a great conversation, Justin. If guesters want to stay connected with you or follow up to ask any additional questions on some of the stuff that you shared, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
You can go to, obviously, i2ipophealth.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, and my email address is justin@i2ipophealth.com.
Thanks, Justin. We really appreciate you being on the show today. It's been such a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big 3, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.